This is a video on the future of embodiment. So I've studied the kind of past of embodiment pretty thoroughly. It's been my love for the last 20 years, my full-time job for the last 9. This idea of the subjective idea of the body is part of who we are. Look at my video, what is embodiment, on that. That video is rapidly gaining hits. It was on 100, a few 1,000 for a while. It's up to 10,000. Seems like the word is trending. I was at a yoga festival recently and the word embodied was tagged onto bloody everything there. So on the one hand, this is a great thing. It's a great thing. So in terms of the world is waking up to this. I mean, embodied prices generally have been on the increase since the 60s. The kind of disembodied world of kind of materialism really came to a conclusion. You know, World War II, the ultimate death camps and mechanized slaughter, Cold War of the 50s, the 40s and 50s really was the natural conclusion and the horror of that way of looking at things. The person as a machine, the disconnection, kind of Fordian view of work. So starting in the 60s, first in counterculture, really starting from perhaps the 90s, being integrated into mainstream, to the point now where, you know, the sort of most conservative newspapers in the UK are doing stuff on mindfulness. It's in the House of Commons, you know, I've taught militaries, House of Lords, whatever. So this stuff is catching on, which is great. So I think we can, that trend of moving into the mainstream of integration will continue. In the same way, I think mindfulness is the kind of edge of that, emotional intelligence, mindfulness, embodiment's kind of catching up with that bodyfulness, people are saying now. How cool. You know, that's going to continue, and mindfulness is opening that door. Things getting increasingly mainstream, as we see with mindfulness, coming into scholastic systems. Public sector seems to lag behind private sector, getting more and more integrated in systems and structures. So I expect we can see that, which is fantastic. Also comes with some risks. If we see of the critique of mindfulness, no doubt embodiment will be critiqued, probably by myself, in the same way when it goes really mainstream. Is it just a sort of tool of capitalist oppression? Is it a way of making us more efficient in a kind of crazy making world? Is it just a middle class pursuit? Yeah, look at my Google yoga whoring and muck mindfulness, the article I did on mindfulness. Many of those problems and things will occur as embodiment becomes more normalized. We could see the quality of training go down. Already we've got this second generation thing happening where the original kind of, well, I mean, embodiment goes back to shamanic times, but the kind of original wave of teachers were coming out of mostly Aikido, other arts, body language, Cohen from dance, different combinations, but they were heavily in practices. They weren't just black belts, they were like 6-degree black belts in Aikido, or, you know, massive body backgrounds of tens of thousands of hours. Some of their students had that, like myself, like Francis Bryars, like some of my competitors, people I love and respect. Some of their students don't, however, so you've got a group of students now who may be life coaches or just keen on the idea, maybe come from a more mental background, and like, yeah, and they were given the tools of, say, teaching, I don't know, centering, kind of classic embodiment tool. That tool can be learned relatively quickly without necessarily having the kind of depth of practice that the people who invented those tools had, and that was actually what was making it work. So you'll see the tools become less effective because it's the person, the being behind the relationship, behind the technique, that makes it work. So I think we'll see that. We'll see more people teaching this stuff who aren't really qualified. You've seen that in NLP, trainings get shorter, teachers get sort of churned out quicker. We've seen that in yoga, the 200-hour yoga teacher training, the long weekend Reiki master or whatever, that kind of thing happening, which will no doubt make me sad and angry, but it's kind of going to happen. I'm already starting to accept it. I'm already bumping into students of some of my teachers and I look at and go, you're not embodied, you don't even have a practice, you know. I've tried to maintain some standards for my own students, but the difficulty is you can replicate crap teachers quicker than you can replicate good ones. You know, on EFC it takes us a good year of practice to give people the basics, and then we encourage them to keep practicing ongoing, stay part of that community. It takes people really 2 or 3 years to mature into practitioners. I mean, as we would expect of anything of value, right? Like, how good would you be at playing a musical instrument after a year, or a sport, right? It takes a little bit of time. So I think we'll see that trend, which is both sad, but one of those things. The integrative trend. So what you tended to have in the first generation was people were kind of fanboys. They had their practice, whether it was Aikido or Tango or whatever. Maybe meditation, maybe like a second thing if you were lucky. Very few teachers. The only ones I can think of, Body Language, Cohen, Strozzi. There weren't many who really had solid backgrounds in many things. And even those that did, it wasn't integrative in the same way. There was still a provincial quality. And part of that was just availability, right? Like for my Aikido teachers, for example, there just wasn't what was available now. Like growing up in Brighton now, if you're a teenager getting into embodied stuff in Brighton, there's dance classes, body work, 10 kinds of yoga, 4 kinds of Aikido, other martial arts, stuff from all Sistema, stuff from Brazil, there's stuff from everywhere now. So the proliferation can lead to a kind of postmodernism of everything's great, but also the next stage up for that is integration. So we've, I think, been leading the way in this. If I'm proud of something, it's not just that we offer variety, we offer breadth as well as depth, and in that we look, how does it fit together? So the models of how things integrate, fit together, also coming out of that sort of 60s postmodernism, the slightly hippie vibe that some of my teachers had. Increased okayness with business. I mean, some of them did, but not many these days. That's normal now. The kids I train, I'm working with young people. They're pretty cool with entrepreneurship. It's pretty normal. They've got their Macs. They're doing something clever online. There's not the same resistance to business. The integration of the different practices from day one. Like I grew up reading books about this stuff. I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. We should therefore be doing more sophisticated work. I see that starting to happen in the kind of what I'd call the bona fide, genuine second generation ones that really have that practice background. I don't just mean me by that as well. There's lots of other cool people out there that have nothing to do with business-wise. Well, not lots, but a good number. Dylan Newcomb, for example, does great work. So I want to big up him. My friends, leadership embodiment friends, Anouk, students of Wendy, John, James, those guys. So don't think I'm just saying like our approach, but an integrative approach, a little bit less like one thing. Standards. Yeah, not just saying anything goes, but actually having some standards within embodiment. Maybe politicization of certain things. They're the main ones I see. So integration, standards, the less kind of hippie vibe, more of these things coming together, increasingly sort of it's becoming a mainstream practice. My dream is that my grandchildren say, I don't get why you have a job, because it's become so normal. Or embodiment teachers just like a normal teacher in a school, like we have history lessons or PE lessons. What it would be like if all physical education was from a deeply embodied practice. We was using yoga, meditation, all the kind of dance forms that exist. That would be pretty cool, right, if that was in schools. So I just hold that up as a vision for the future, not necessarily the way it's going to go, but a possibility. This could kind of keep as a microcosm elitist things. I know certainly people are selling this stuff only with price tags that I try and kind of mix the cheap stuff with the expensive stuff to keep the accessibility, to make it free on YouTube as well as selling the courses for my own living. It could just be a minority thing. I think, however, it's spreading, it's catching on. Looking at the number of hits we get on certain YouTube videos, the future of embodiment is bright. And I mean, who really knows, right? So there are my guesses, random musings.